Aha. Okay, I think we might be working. Everything looks like it might be back on. Fingers crossed. Let me know if you guys can see me. Yes, okay, we look like we might be back on. So sorry for that, guys. I think there were a couple of issues on the YouTube side of things, which now look to be rectified. I think I might have a slight setting problem on my thing as well. So let me know if you can see me. This should all now be running fine. And you shouldn't have any more laggy issues or anything like that either. So sorry for that. We will carry on where we left off. Hey, yes, I'm back. And I think I'm okay now. I think we've had a couple of porting errors as we've gone from one streaming platform to the other, but now we seem to be back and I think everything will be working fine. So let me know if you can hear everything. Let me know if there's any issues, and we shall carry on. We'll go back and listen to this fanfare and then we will see. Hey, Cosmodium, good to see you. Okay. Cool. So that's our fanfare. Hopefully you can hear that now. Can you all hear? Hey, Kason, good to see you. Yeah, thanks for bearing with us. So sorry that we had a bit of an issue. Everything now looks okay on mine. I'm getting no drop frames. Everything looks fine. The door audio seems to be playing. Life is good. So yes, sorry guys, if you were with us and weren't able to hear or see me properly, that should all now be rectified. Teething troubles as we're moving from the small platform to the classic, at the one time that you think we're finally on the big platform, we're going to make this work, and everything starts going wrong. Classic. Okay, let's get this going so that we can do this as good as possible. Let's start by just maybe copying all of this stuff in the low section. Audio and video both working properly. Thank you, Walker. That's great to hear. Cool. So we can have some fun with this now. Let's start by just, I think I might use Dolce for some of this. Almost mix Dolce and Araya together, which is a bit of an odd combination, but they can work really well together. You get a bit of both worlds then. Yeah, so let me know. Everything looks to be working here. Cool. Sorry, having all these weird technical gremlins coming. Let me know if there's any issues, but hopefully everything will be fine. Okay. We are planning on doing the Marvel Fanfare. So if you guys weren't there from the beginning, we're going to take the Marvel Fanfare. I've done a rough piano sketch, as you can see. We've laid it out into the brass woodwind strings, but all in the piano, sorry. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn this into hopefully a decent mock-up in a couple of hours. That's going to be the plan. So I'm going to take these Dolce spiccatos. I'm going to see if this sounds good. They sound pretty good to me. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to copy them over to the basses, but we're not going to have the basses play the same speed. You wouldn't really get basses playing that kind of speed usually. But we're going to copy them over and we're just going to take some of the notes. They're going to have these sort of downbeat notes. So let's have a little listen to this. Octave down. That's what we want there. And we're going to take some of these out and then just get this kind of groove going. And I'm not sure which ones we're going to use. Yeah, probably going to do that kind of thing. Dum, 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 dum. Jumping on. Hey, Tom, good to see you. Hey, Kaya. I'm going to probably do a fairly faithful mock-up. I may end up adding one or two of my own elements, and we may do something more with this next week. So that may be the plan. So we'll see how all that goes. But yeah, for today, we're probably going to try and do quite a faithful kind of reconstruction of it. Okay, so let's now just mute all these piano stuff for a moment and have a listen to some of this. Nice. So we can now just kind of copy and paste what we have going on here. So I'm just putting some strings in to get the strings to kind of carry in the piece in the beginning. So I'm just going to copy these strings and we're just going to get this going. Oh, we don't want that. Strings are pretty simple for this. It's mostly based on this kind of groove that we have going on. That sounds pretty good to me. Nice. And then in the upper strings, and I think I will do this on Dolce as well. Most of this might be done with Dolce strings, which is strange because it's a chamber library, but it sounds really, really cinematic, really beefy. And we may layer Dolce and Araya to kind of get the best of both worlds, which I will show you how that works. So let's take this. I love watching composers doing live mockups. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. I love doing the mockups. So yeah, hopefully this is going to be good fun. Okay, so I'm going to put this in these strings here. These are our second violins. And this is going to be our lower harmonic part here, or the lower part of the harmony. Once we put these two in, we should start to get a sense of what this is going to sound like. Okay, you can already kind of hear where this is going. Nice. And then we're going to copy what we have up here in the upper strings, put that in our first violins, and then we kind of have our string section complete for this little opening section here. Okay. So a lot of today is going to be copy and paste, and we'll talk a little bit. If you guys have any questions, by the way, about harmony, mockups, anything, just let us know, and we will definitely listen to all that stuff that you've got question-wise and answer as best we can. Same, any suggestions, any thoughts, just want to say hello, just want to say anything, feel more than free. You will be welcome. Cool. So, okay. So we have, these are actually, let me just double check, they are our first. Ooh, they're our first. Okay, so actually we want that there and we want to move that down. A little bit of housekeeping here where we haven't named these properly. So we're going to name like this. And then we're going to play that in, or rather paste it in, and then we should have the groove going for this. Yes. There it is. Instantly sounds great. I love it. What I may do now, by the way, it's the first time on the main channel, if I'm not mistaken. It is. Thank you very much. Thanks for the congrats. Yes, everything I think from now on is going to be here every Tuesday, minus the issues that we had at the beginning. Hopefully that's the idea. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing from now on, is doing this stuff here, having fun. Like we said, it's a big community thing. So if you want to get involved with the chat or anything, feel free. Okay, what I'm now going to do is I'm probably going to just copy this up to the violas. And we're probably going to have the violas just hammering on that G along with everybody else. So here's what we have so far. Nice. Sounds good. Now, what I'm probably going to do is take these second violins in Araya. I'm going to put these to fast spiccato. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to name it spiccato fast. And I'm going, oh, we don't need that little tilde there. I'm going to copy these over now. Araya is a bit of a drier library, which is sometimes a really good thing, you know, but it's not as lush as Dolce. It's a bit more focused cinematic sound. But here's the thing with mockups, we can use both. I'm going to combine both these together, and then we should get something like this. Hear how that's a little bit, I mean, compared to these two, it's not as sort of rich and whole sounding, but it has a tightness and a focus. So now it's adding a bit of kind of depth. Nice. What do you use to make the strings sound not so plastic or digital, especially in the high-pitched strings? What plugins do you use for this? That's a good question. Sometimes it can just be about placing them with some reverb. Sometimes it can be about EQ. We'll maybe look at that today. Sometimes it can just be using the right strings for the right particular sound that you're looking for as well, which is why I'm probably going to blend libraries today to get a bit of the best of both worlds. And they're very different libraries, but you can blend them and you don't need to do too much craziness to get a good sound out of them. So we'll maybe look at that as we go through. But it's a really good question. Most of the time, things can sound a little high and harsh in the higher frequencies, and we either want to bring them down with some EQ or maybe some spatialization or some reverb, just to generally push things back, put them in a different space or a slightly different space. Okay, next thing we need to do is this. Now, this is where things will start to come to life a bit. We have these. These are our woodwinds, as you can see up here. Now, they form a big part of this opening section, if I remember. And I am kind of doing this from memory, but I think it's a pretty classic theme. So I have this Nucleus full ensemble here. This is just woodwinds across the range. Nice. I'm just going to pop. We don't need to go too crazy. I may use different patches here, but where we can use ensemble patches, we'll just use ensemble patches. Nice. That sounds really good to me. Bring that down in velocity a bit because we don't need them to be nice. And then with the strings, we have this. That sounded good. Now what I may do is come to my woodwinds here and I may increase, if you can see here, my hall size to put these in a bit more of a room and a hall. I have this reverb setup here and I'm literally sending to one hall reverb, one room reverb. Both Valhalla are really, really simple plugins, nothing crazy going on. I can show you the plugins. I have one instance of Valhalla Room, relatively inexpensive reverb, but really, really good. And then one of the vintage verbs set to a kind of wider, longer hall. And I can just use this to spatialize my instruments a bit. So you can hear. And without that reverb, they just sound a bit closer and a bit drier. So yeah, if I just mute those, show you. See how much more immediately close they are. But if I put them back in, they just help to push everything back a bit. And that is very often all you need. Sometimes what's interesting about reverb is when you add reverb, it will bring in these sort of more roomy mid frequencies and push the higher frequencies back sometimes. So sometimes that's all you need. Nice, that's sounding pretty good to me. And I think that's pretty much all that's going on there. We do have a couple of things that I remember happening at the beginning here. So we have, if I remember rightly, a tubular bell, which we do have from Nucleus here. I've made a little note of that tubular bell. It's here. It's just a G here. It's really simple, but it just adds a lot of character, and kind of tubular bells can sound quite heroic and grand. There it is. We may again do a bit of EQ or reverb to push that back. So that's just going to add a lot in terms of bit of depth here. It's just this really nice, simple tubular bell there. And then we also have, if I remember rightly, these little horns at the beginning. They just play this little, really simple figure. You can barely hear it. But if you listen to the original, it just helps to add a bit of a flourish. And I think these will sound really good on something like the Jaeger horns. So I'm just going to pop them in as well. What we'll probably do is almost get all this done with the strings, the brass and the woodwinds, and then we'll look to add the percussion where we need it and so on. But we'll look to focus on getting the orchestration right. So I have Jaeger brass here, these 6 horns. I think 6 horns today. We may use Talos, which has got a bigger section, but this could be all we need for today. So let's have a little look. So we're going to have this. Nice, beautiful. And it's just going to be, that's kind of like a little rip up from a low G to a high G, but it just adds a bit of interest here. Nice. And we just want to find a balance. We don't want that to be too in your face. That could be good for now. And again, we maybe do a bit of reverb to push these back further if we need to. Nice. Okay, cool. So now we'll focus on getting the melody in, because, you know, that's really where everything is going to sort of pay off. Now, the melody is, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's in the trombones and the horns. That's a really common superhero combination, all the brass playing together, you know, trumpets, horns, and trombones, or trombones and horns. In the case of trombones and horns, horns had this beautiful, heroic, round character. Trombones had a bit of bite. So using both of them really creates this nice sound. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. We have this section. I'm going to copy and paste it while I reinvent the wheel. And yeah, thanks so much for bearing with me, guys, through our little hiccups at the beginning there. Okay, so I'm probably going to do this on the Jaeger trombones as well. So let's see what we've got here. We may need to do a bit of key switching here. Yeah, so you can see we're going to need to do a bit of key switching. That's all easy done. So I'm going to move this here. We have only really 3 articulations here, but that's more than enough to do what we're going to be doing. So let's see. So we have this -1 as our sustained. And then for these, we just want the staccatessimos and then back to the sustaineds. I think that's all we're going to need. And they're not too blaring at the beginning. You know, they're loud, but they're not full, crazy, intense. They're sort of playing a little bit more understated than that. So we'll have a listen to what we have here. Put a bit of modulation in just to get this up to a sort of mezzo forte, forte level. Nice. Now we need to do one thing here. We have a great feature called the range feature here. What that allows me to do is increase the range of these trombones. So I'll just push that up a little bit, and then we'll get this very top note. Nice. And I think we're going to want those, maybe, I think they're going to be staccatissimo as well. So, nice. Nice. And then we'll just do, this is a really simple technique. Just bring the brass down in intensity at the end, because if you were a real player, you play that big note, dun, 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 and then you just back the breath off at the end there to take a breath for your next phrase. See how it just sounds a little bit more natural. Tom, yes, I am using Array. I'm using Dolce mostly though, I think, but I will be using both today. I think that's the way I'm going to go. Nice, this is starting to come together already. Now, we'll add the exact same thing, but with a slight difference to the horns, and that should be the texture that we want. So this is what we want here. Akai is saying Array is saying more dry to just to make the orchestra more apparent. Yeah, that's 100% what we're doing. Just using Array to maybe get a bit of bite in there, but combining both, I love both of them. Why not use both? So, okay, let's play around with these, see what we like in terms of sounds. Now, with these horns, they don't play the da, 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 da. They actually just play one note like this, but it's a good balance. The trombones, where you can get a little bit more bite out of a trombone than a horn. Horn's a bit more rounded, a bit softer attack. So Michael Giacchino is using them both to their sort of strengths, rather than trying to get the horn to play lines it wouldn't naturally sound good with. So let's have a listen. Nice. Okay, now do I want a sustain there, or I actually think the portato sounds good. Portato is like a little bit more rounded there. So I think that's what I'm going to use. Nice. Yeah, I think that works. I'm just putting these key switches in to get this working. Nice. Okay. And same here, just a little staccatissimo at the end for that phrase. And then make sure we go back to maybe the sustains for that last note. Nice. That's going to sound cool, I think. And I think the same thing here. Use the modulation to just back off at the end. That's maybe a bit too much. It's not sounding very natural. Maybe something more like that. Even that's a bit too much, I think. Kind of want to find a balance where the players wouldn't necessarily go down in dynamic. They just back off a little bit to give the phrase a bit more nuance. Nice, that works to me. So this is what we have. Cool. And what I'm going to do is add a bit more room to the brass as well. The brass in the original, quite hall-like, you know, they've got quite a big bloomy sound. So we can get that with a bit more hall. Push these brass back a little bit. Nice. And then maybe we'll just bring the trombones down a tiny bit, just to bed them in. Now we're starting to get somewhere, I think. Next thing I want to do is this awesome little refrain in the trumpets that I just love. This is just a lovely little way to end this first phrase. You know, we always say this. We've said this on the stream before. Have you been with us before? If not, then we're going to say it now. You know, you never want music to just sort of become too static, right? You always want little flourishes usually. Maybe not always if you're doing certain kind of drama music or understated music, but like something like this, with a little flourish to hold this. I mean, you can already hear it, right? It's like if you're listening to this, I don't know what you guys think, but there's just something that you can feel that you need at the end of this phrase. It goes on too long without anything happening. Michael Giacchino, fantastic composer, pretty much understands that intuitively, I'd imagine. and so has added this little phrase, which I think is really cool, on the trumpets. So it's a little trumpet fanfare. Let me see if I can get this going. There it is. And again, we use some key switches here just to make this sound cool. Okay, so where are we? We want to go to the -1 here. There we go. And maybe the portato at the end there as well. Let's listen to that. Nice. Yeah, that sounds cool. Back that off a tiny bit. Maybe let's just try a sustain there. Maybe that would work better. No, I think the portato. And we'll just maybe bring it down intensity. And I'm going to just use a bit of random quantize here. So you can see I'm changing the ticks to make this a little bit more naturally human. Watch what happens. I hope you guys can see. Yeah, when I use this and press quantize, these move around a bit, just a tiny bit off the grid. It's just going to add a little bit of a human flourish. I could do this by playing it in, but I'm being lazy and just copying and pasting. So, nice. We can probably just end that a bit sooner. When you're using the mod wheel as your program dynamics, how do you think about using expression? Truthfully, I often don't use expression if I put my hand on my heart. Some people use both almost all the time, completely in conjunction. Expression is really just a volume control. In some ways, it doesn't exist in the real world, but with samples, you have an interesting thing where samples are obviously recorded at, I suppose, discrete values. So, you know, a real player can play at hundreds and hundreds of different dynamic ranges in a kind of spectrum. With a sample library, you just can't capture many more than 3, 4, 5, even 6, 7, 8 is still going to be kind of a small amount of what a player can truly play. But you can get a really, really good result with 3, 4, 5 dynamic layers. Expression can sometimes help when you find a tone that you like, but it's just a bit too loud or a bit too quiet. And then you can use it as a way to kind of blend the tone. So let's say you've got a brassy tone that you like, but it just sticks out too much in the mix. You can use the expression maybe just to dip it down for that bar or two and bring it back up. Oftentimes sample libraries are so well developed that you don't actually need to use something like this. You can just use the dynamic range, and that's often enough. So if you do want to use expression, I usually just use it just to get things in the mix a bit more without having to use channel faders. But very often I don't use it personally. Yeah. Expression is similar to automation, but you can think of it, without getting too technical, you can think of it as coming before any effects. For example, if you have effects on a bus, let's say, and you raise the volume of that bus, all the effect volumes come up with it. But if you have expression, all of the volume stuff happens before it hits the bus and any EQ or reverb or compression. So it's a way of maybe being more transparent with what you're doing. So that's maybe why sometimes you want to use expression. And as I say, some people really use them both and get great results. I'm sometimes lazy, or sometimes just find with the sample libraries I'm using, I don't need the expression. So I just use it if I really find I have to bury things in or bring things out a bit more. And truthfully, very often I do just tweak the channel automation a bit. Sometimes that's more than enough. So let's have a listen to this. Nice, cool. And this is a great example of where, yeah, we may just want to bring those trumpets down a bit. I'm just going to do it here. Nice, cool. Let's just carry on and get the rest of that melody in, because once we've got the melody, we're kind of sitting pretty. Okay. So we can just copy from here again. I'm going to pop this on our trombone first. That's here. We'll do the key switching again. So make sure we carry that key switch over. We're going to use this key switch just to do a little bit of staccatissimo. Back to our sustains. Little staccatissimo for those two, and then we have the second phrase, and I'll make sure that this is back up where it needs to be. And same thing, just going to at the end back it down, but maybe do a little rise first before we back it down. We'll see if that works. Oh, and we have to do the same thing all over again. There we go. So hold on the staccatissimos, we also have to raise them as well. This is done on a per articulation. Nice, that sounds pretty good to me. And we'll just back off that tiny bit. Fluid brass maybe for that trumpet line, Adam? Yeah, we could try fluid brass. Maybe we'll get it all in and then maybe we'll just have a mess around and see what works. Hey guys, hey Adam, hey Kaya, hey AO Panda. Thank you very much. Glad you're liking it. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to copy this into our horns. Same thing here. We're going to want these portatos, and then we're going to want our staccatessimos. We're going to get rid of the second notes here because that's going to sound a bit lazy on a horn. Horns just can't quite attack as much as brass, other brass like trumpets and trombones. They can do attacks, but they're a bit lazier, a little bit softer. So trying to get something like da 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 is going to be quite hard on a horn. It's kind of possible, but it's not what the horn does best. So we're just replicating what I think Michael Giacchino does, and just using the single notes. Okay, what do we have here? Nice, and I'm just going to... Cool, that sounds good to me. Let's have a listen. Nice, and then we have a little flourish in the trumpets again. Let's just get that in. Slightly different this time, but same basic idea, just adding a bit of rhythmic interest to the end of this phrase, which is what we want. So have a look again. So again, I'm going to use staccatissimo and then maybe this little portato. Okay. That's actually what it is, I think. It's not a G minor, it's a B flat. Nice. Okay, and then I'm just going to copy over in our basses here. The same thing is happening. Just G major to B flat major. So really simple stuff. Nice, cool. And then we're going to do the same thing in our cellos. They're just really providing this really fast, constant driving rhythm. Nice. I don't get why most, not all libraries have the ability to add ranges to their instruments. It's just so useful. I agree. Yeah, sometimes you just, you know, players, there's no such thing as an absolute range. I mean, okay, some instruments obviously are never going to get to a certain, but you know, some players can hit a note or two higher than maybe the average. I find the range feature really useful. It keeps everything compact, but if you ever just want to leap out a bit, you can do it. Nice. Okay, so let me show you what the strings do here. It's a really nice, interesting little thing that the strings do. So let me copy this over. The upper strings sort of just play a slightly more stunted rhythm for this moment. They don't play everything, so I'm going to delete the stuff they don't play. They're just playing these notes just to pick out some kind of accents and things here. So let me just do a quick save. Yeah, glad to see everybody here. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, thank you very much for keeping this chat going. I am keeping an eye on it. And obviously the other guys from Audio Imperia here as well. So this is what's happening when the main melody starts. You can see at the beginning we have... And actually, I don't know why we don't have this line going. They do this. Just picking out this little rhythm here. So it sounds like this. Bye, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Thank you. So that's all they're doing. And then moving up to the B flat here. So we have the third and the fifth from the B flat. And that's all we're going to want here. So yeah. Cool. And I'm going to just take top line here. And make sure that we have that copied. Keep everything going on Dolce. It's the only problem when you're layering libraries. Sometimes you have to go back and forth a bit, but hey. See how they're just adding this really nice kind of little detail here. It's a rhythmic interest. By stopping everything playing this constant, you know, kind of triplet pattern, it just helps to add a bit of rhythm and downbeat on these certain things we want to pick out. So this is what we have so far. We're doing pretty well. Nice. So in the second half, as we were saying earlier on, you never want things to be static. You never really want to just keep things repeating too much. Again, Michael Giacchino, a very talented composer, knows this. So he introduces something like this. Now, we're going to tidy this up as we go, but we'll just get this in for now, roughly how we want it. So let me put this maybe we'll put it on the marcatos from Dolce. I think it's going to sound good there. And we'll just do this in the 1 octave for now. Have this little counter melody, if you like, going on here. So it happens like this. Nice. So it's really nice little counter melody. It just helps to really kind of reinforce this line. Let's try also adding this on the Dolce performance legatos as well. Nice, yep. So with a little bit of massaging here, let's get these legatos going. We're going to get kind of like a nice little run. Cool. And I think we're going to want to maybe bring them down an octave. That's too high here. Okay. Let's have a little listen to that. The runs, right. Yeah, there's some little runs going on. Now we'll tidy them up as we go. That's all sounding a bit rough at the moment. The first thing to do is maybe bring the volume of this. And then I'm also just going to check we have the right sample start time going on here. 80 milliseconds. No, we don't. That's why it sounds a bit weird. We have it set to 180. That's easily fixed. So this should now be in time. Yeah, nice. So these two together, again, we're going to get the slightly more sweeter emotional sound of Dolce combined with that nice cinematic crisp sound of Araya. Cool, that's sounding good. And I'm just going to sort of make sure these are balanced. Cool, that sounds good to me. Yeah, it definitely adds a lot, and it just makes the second part more interesting. You know, we have this. Nice, sounds really good, yeah. And we're just going to ensure, let me just make sure. Yeah, so if I go up here, I'm going to increase the volume of my Dolce a little bit here. I want that one poking through a bit more, I think. Nice, cool. That sounds really good. Now, what we're going to want is to reinforce those strings. They'd be a bit weak on their own, so we're going to reinforce them and wait on the percussion and cymbals. We will get to them, I'm hoping. Yeah, we'll try and rush through this part. Cool. I'm just going to copy these violas. They're pretty much just mimicking what the celli are doing. Yeah, the percussions can make a huge difference because a lot of this is percussion based. Just that really great sound of percussion. And we're also going to have this in octaves as well, these violins. So I will show you how that sounds in a minute. Cool. So if I maybe just use, let's think. If I maybe just get, oh, we've got the violins to legato in Dolce. So maybe I'll just use that. We don't have to worry because this is a layer and it's in a big kind of full orchestra. We don't have to worry too much about realism in some ways here because we won't really hear this. If you listen to it in isolation, you'd be able to pick out problems, but I think it's going to sound sort of fine. And let's just make sure that we have, yeah, nice. How do you generally start a music like this? You mean where would I start in terms of instruments? If that's what you mean, I would usually probably start with, it's going to be strings usually. In most cinematic stuff that, you know, the strings are providing a pretty important kind of sound. But we started with the sketch today, yeah. And of course, this isn't my music either. So, you know, it was easier for me to figure this out. See, that lower octave is really adding a lot of thickness. And we'll do a little... Nice, cool. That's going to be cool. So... we'll fix those runs because they don't sound great at the moment, but we can. That's definitely going to be something for the end. What we want is a little run in now. There's this beautiful little run. I think I've already got it sketched, so in which case I'm just going to take it. Just a because a line like this, you wouldn't want to just bring it in kind of cold. You want to lead up to it, but it's kind of subtle, but it really works. So if we just make them all legato, we're going to have a nice little flourish in. We would sort of ramp into that with the modulation. We don't want to just run in straight away. Nice. Again, maybe sounds a bit weird by itself, but that's fine because with everything else, it's going to sound okay, I think. Move them across. Nice. So we're going to get the attack of that marcato and then the run-like nature of the legatos. When combined together, they'll sound pretty good. Cool. That sounds good to me. I'm just going to make sure it's not a bit too loud. Yeah, I'm going to bring that down, just back it off a bit. That's nice. Cool, that's sounding pretty good to me now. Well, our chorus and it's a Dark Souls track, mate. Yeah, why not? Hey, like I said, next week we've got an idea of maybe we're going to come back and do something with this next week, maybe. So maybe that's what we'll end up doing. So these high strings are on their own. One thing about high strings is that they're not as powerful as they sound in scoring. Everybody thinks high strings are absolutely huge and they're going to blast over all the brass and everything. It's never going to happen. High strings are very often supported by high woodwinds, which just give a texture. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm probably just going to put it on the flutes. I think that's going to make life easier for us. So I'm going to make this nice and easy. Copy that. Put this in the flutes. Again, this is a texture. We don't need to hear this and make it perfect in isolation. No, flutes would not be playing that low generally. They're going to be up here. Cool. And let's just try making that sustained. That's going to be this key switch here. This is just going to add a flute-like texture. So that'll do for this. I think we don't need it to sound super realistic. We could, tweak it a bit if we wanted to. I mean, let's just do this just to get a nice little staccato. Cool, that sounds good. And then I'm gonna put this on 2 octaves. So it's like we have a pair of flutes playing both octaves, basically one on the lower octave, one on the higher. Oh, this is me getting all my muting stuff wrong here. That'll do. Okay, let's just see where that's too low. So what we're gonna do is take all this and go up 2 octaves. Nice, that's where we kind of want it. Yeah, I find it easier to write dynamics with the hand, with hand by mouse like this. Just I do this, and then sometimes I'll go in and re-record stuff. But nice, that's just giving us a bit of a run and helping to really sort of make those strings a bit more thick sounding. I mean, I'll just show you just very quickly the high strings on their own, and then with the flutes, just so we can see what the flutes are adding. It's subtle, but it's really filling in some of the mid-range. It's giving it like a kind of backbone, if you like. And that'll just help it cut through the mix a bit more. Cool. I mean, we sort of got that section. It needs some work, but we'll move on because we want to try and get all this fleshed out. And then with the time we've got left, we can really just sort of try and make it sound good. So this section, nice key change from time signature change from 4/4 3/4 here. Sounds great. Really just adds this kind of rhythmic drive at this point, which is really cool. So let's just pop this on here for now. It's probably a bit high there, but nice. This is so cool. So the brass are going to move to chords here as well, and that's what's really going to sell this section. Nice. And what I'm going to do is just reinforce this with something from Araya, which will again add that bite and that crispness, I think. So let's just take these Araya first violins. Let's make this, I think we can maybe do all this with the Marcato shorts. Let's see how it goes. So we're starting here at this 3/4. Again, just copy and paste. We're not going to worry too much about, oh, did I do that? There we go. Yep. Cool. Nice, that sounds really good to me. Bring that down a little bit in volume, but that's just adding. And what we may do here, I mean, let's just open it up and see. Maybe to give a bit more realism, I'm going to alternate between these Marcato shorts on the F sharp. So that's going to be all the way down here. Maybe for these little moments here, we're going to go to the spiccatos. So there we go. Nice, that's going to sound really good, I think. Cool. And then we have this. Nice, and we're going to want to go back there. Nice, that sounds cool to me. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. I can just copy that over. Sweet. And together, again, we're going to get the best of both worlds. I think we're going to bring that down a little bit in volume. Focus on the Dolce. Cool. That sounds pretty good to me. We'll focus on this brass because the brass is really where all this comes to life. So let's have a little listen to our brass here. So in the trumpets, we're going to have this line. We'll get that in first because that's really the key here. And then we've got some harmony on our other brass instruments. So let's take a look what we have here. I'm going to extend that a bit, bring this out. Okay, so this is where we're going to have to do some massaging of cool. So let's just see what's going to sound better. Maybe staccato. Yeah, that might sound better, I think. So yeah, that sounds good to me. And then we have this. And then we're going to want to go to the strings. Nice, that sounds good. And then we do the exact same thing here. Now, what I really love about the trumpets is the way at the very end they go to these big chords. Up until this point, they're playing this kind of unison. It might be octaves, we'll have a look into that. But then at the end, for this big C and D major, they go to these chords. Little breathing spot there. And again, we're going to just give a little bit of a kind of breathing spot in these. Cool. So Let's go back to our brass sketch here. Let's see what we're doing. We have these chords. And they're going to go at the end of this little phrase. It's just going to really sound huge. And we're going to want that to be sustained. Let me just make sure we're on that. Yep. Nice. And we'll do a little bit of mod wheel here, just to ensure this sounds really good. And a big swell up. And then when we get everything else in, we'll see how this sounds. Nice. That's pretty cool to me. Then we have a nice big swell there. Okay, so that's working now. And with the high strings will add a lot to the energy of those trumpets. Nice, that sounds really good to me. Okay, now what we're going to want to do is put this on our horns. We're also going to put it on the trombones as well, but the horns have this kind of harmony element to them as well. So let's just see what we have going on here. Okay, so I'm going to grab all of this and I'm going to think that's what our horns are going to play here. And then we'll just sort of start messing around and finding out what we want. So I think that's where we took it from. Let me just double check. Yeah, so we've got all this here. Cool. And this is where we'll just do some orchestration as we go now, because this may all change. We'll just see how it all sounds. So the horns. So we're going to obviously have to do a little bit of massaging of everything here. That's no problem. Let's see. Maybe we can do the same for the trumpets. And do something like this. And then just... Yeah, nice. That's going to work, I think. And then big sustain there. And I'll just do right in a little... But we're obviously going to want that to be sustained, not legato, so we can play two notes at the same time. Same thing here, little tiny breaks in between these. Give them, if things are too close together, if everything is just like there's no gaps, that's not how people play or you know, breathe or really kind of just enunciate musically. You know, there's always tiny little gaps and little phrasing issues. Putting them in can actually make things sound better. Nice, that sounds really good to me. Especially when we get those trombones in, they're going to add a lot of the kind of weight. Hear that? That's all that great harmony stuff that's just going to make everything sound really thick and full. So together, let's see what we have so far. Yeah, you can see how all that's going to work together. Okay, let's just take a quick look. Yeah, cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this line in the trumpets. I'm going to put it in the trombones, but obviously much lower. Trombones wouldn't get that high, and it wouldn't sound pretty if they could. But they can do this an octave lower, or maybe even two. I think maybe. Okay, that sounds good to me. Okay. Cool, that's going to be good, I think. Okay, let's just have a little play around with this key switching, see what we want everything to do. And yeah, obviously, guys, if you have any questions, I am keeping an eye on the chat, so feel free to ask. And if I can answer, I definitely will. And then we've got... Nice, okay. I'm not sure if they're in this octave or a higher octave, but as we're putting all this together, we can figure that out. That's easy enough to change around. Okay. So here's what we have. Cool, that's sounding really good to me. So should we have a little recap of where we're at so far? And then we can quickly add the low strings, which pretty much continue doing the same thing all the way throughout. And then we're almost there, really. The woodwinds will just be mimicking a lot what's going on in the strings. Let's get the rest of these notes in here. So we're going to have nice big 4-horn brass here. Horns in these big sort of chords, you usually get 4, 6, maybe 8 horns, sometimes 10 or 12, but the playing kind of big harmonies just sound so good on the horns. Thank you, Kaya. Let's see what we think. And then we're going to get this. Okay. Nice. We just bring those horns down at the end so we can let the high strings and the trumpets really sort of play out. Now, a really nice trombone voicing is to have the root followed by the 5th and then the 3rd. But obviously we're going to want these sustained. And then maybe for this one, nice, that sounds good to me, but we're going to want to move. We want this kind of going down before we go back up. We're really going to want to sell that idea. So again, we want to find the right balance between losing too much momentum and the belt at the beginning looks great. Ear candies are important. They are. And we're going to put more of them in. There's quite a lot of ear candies that we will add, particularly harp. Harp's a really big one in this. Cool. I'm glad you're learning a lot of brass knowledge. Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is too high. So you can, either works fine. But I actually think in this case, we have enough thirds going on in the trumpet. The third of a chord really gives character to the chord. But the problem with the third can be if you hear too much of the third, it can kind of weaken a chord or make it sound a bit sparse. So I think we can just have these trombones just really focus on. And then maybe like this. That sounds good to me. Okay, so we're going to want low brass at some point, but we're definitely going to want it here. So I'm going to just, actually I don't need to write this in. Why do I keep writing things in? I can just take this from what I've already kind of worked out. You'll see the low brass I have here. Simple stuff. It's going to be copying what goes on in the strings, but just playing a different rhythm because the low brass can't play the da, 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 da. It's not going to happen on low brass. But it can really reinforce these notes here. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use a combination, I think, of these marcato shorts, which is like a marked note, but with a bit of sustain, followed by the staccatissimos. Hopefully this will sound nice. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So I'm going to just grab that and maybe use longs instead of short marcatos. Nice, cool. That's going to work, I think. Right Sound Studio says, "Could watch this all day." Thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. This has been a really good, fun one. And yeah, I appreciate all the technical difficulties at the beginning. You guys for sticking around. Yeah, it's been one of those days, but we've got it working now. And I think for future streams, we won't have those issues again. Now we've got them all sorted. So yeah, and then again, maybe for this brass at the end, we're going to want some sustain so we can get some mod wheel stuff in this. So nice. And I think we just have that an octave up as well. Apart from the fact it doesn't go that high. We could use the range, but no, let's stick. Nice, sounds really good to me. With the strings, pretty much carries on with this rhythm, but just going through. We'll probably increase the modulation, or the velocity rather in this case. So we've got, and we'll just bring this up a bit because everything's getting increased in volume. So the strings would just naturally play louder. In fact, we'll do a little ramp up to there. We're obviously going to change there to the B flat. Nice. And then same thing here, but slightly different chords at the end. And right down to the bottom of that cello's range. Yeah, that's going to be cool. Same thing here. Watch how I'm just going to ramp this up a little bit to get a bit more intensity. See how this just adds a little bit of oomph. Just giving us a bit more into that final section there. But obviously in D. Caproni says, I'd like to have more of your difficult days when I compose. It sounds great. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had a bit of a technical issue at the beginning where we couldn't get the stream quite working. It also has to rip again at the end. It does, yes, that's very true. Now, what I'm thinking here, I'm just going to riff on this now. I'm going to say the cello may divide here. One of the things about dividing is it actually, even though technically it makes things weaker because you're dividing the notes, number one, it doesn't matter so much in sample libraries. And number two, actually, even in real life, dividing stuff can make it sound thicker. Watch how I'm going to, I think, add more richness here on its own. See how that adds. And then we want... Cool. Just going to change some of the rhythm of this. So yeah, we're going to want the rhythm to change slightly, I think. Cool. Now what we're going to do is on the basses here, we're going to move to the bass staccato. So again, spiccato is really short, kind of like these clip notes. Staccato has got a big attack. Oh, if I put the thing on. But it's going to help add a bit more than this. This just dies out a bit quick. That's not what's happening here. We want something a bit bigger. So what we're going to do is we're just going to nick this from our low brass. Pretty much a lot of orchestral music is really just doubling, as we call it, you know, where one or more instruments from different groups may play the same things. You know, you don't have to every instrument playing a different thing. That would sound chaotic. So, yeah. It sounds kind of weird on its own, but it's going to fit in, I think. Nice. That's sounding good to me. Now, all we're going to do for our woodwind is take all this and copy it over. It doesn't even matter if this is what the woodwind do or don't do. That's not really important. In this, the woodwinds are not focusing a focus point very much, but they're a texture that's really important. Sort of the sound of woodwind is just so typically orchestral. But they're obviously not going to play quite like that. They're going to play more like this. And we might need to do a bit of key switching here. First thing to do is we want them up here. There, I think is one. Okay, cool. So we may do an octave higher. Let's just see. No, I think we're going to want that's as high as they're going to want to go, but we are going to want to do some key switching here. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. We can copy and paste a lot of these key switching. So nice, sounds good. Yeah, that's all good to me. And then we got nice. Okay, same thing here. Again, to get the rhythm right here, we're going to want to reduce these notes a bit. They're a bit too long at the moment. Blah, 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 blah. We kind of want rhythm. We want a little break to give more emphasis to each note. See how that's different in the beginning? There it starts to get a bit lumpy. Less. A bit more on these guys at the top mind, so we even everything out. And again, we don't have to get things perfect. If you were playing this in, it wouldn't be perfect. And actually, these imperfections are often what make things sound better. Now, what I want to do at this point is something slightly different. I'm going to take these three. I'm going to cut them out of here. I'm going to go to my flutes, which are up here. Now, for this little section, I'm going to paste them into my flutes alone. Nice. I'm going to use trills here. I don't know if this happens in, I think it does happen in the real one, but the reason why is it's just going to add, so probably half-tone trills. But that sounds weird, right? And that's technically not how things would go. But buried in the mix, that's going to add some sort of life, I think. Shed it. Oh, we can dine it out. See how they sound weird by themselves? But in the mix, if we just bring them down a tiny, tiny bit so they're just not really poking out, but they're there. They just add a bit of excitement. You can barely hear them, but without... Everything's a bit static with... Cool. Shall we get the ending done? And then we're done for the basics. Then we can just look at what we want to do to make this sound maybe a little bit better in places. Timpani's going to help a lot. We're going to get some percussion in, I hope. Cool. So what do we have at the end? So it's all pretty straightforward. It's continuation what everyone else was doing. Let's just have a quick look. We kind of want big at the end, you know, the loudest we've been really. In the upper strings, we'll worry about the lower strings in a moment. In the upper strings, we have this. I'll copy all this over, then just sort of line by line get it working. So let's take a little look at what we have going on here. We'll worry about those. Then we have this. We'll worry about that thing at the end. That sounds a bit weird, but we can make it work. So we just want this line here. This is our second violins. So just the top, oh, sorry, the bottom line here. And then we'll just bring the velocity of that up a bit at the end because we're going to want them to sound big. Cool. That's all going to work. Sounds a bit weird on its own, but it's going to work with the rest of the orchestration because the brass is really taking over at this point. So the strings are just supporting. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to want to do is bring that out there. And I want to use the upper line. This is our first violins, so they're going to play the upper line. This is how it would work in a real orchestra. Generally speaking, the first violins are going to play your top line, and second violins are going to play the line below. See how that adds some tension at the end by all the strings getting higher. just really makes that last section sing. So again, we'll fix it all as we go. That sounds a bit ropey at the moment, but that's all cool. So we have this going on in the brass. It's all just staccato notes, kind of following what's going on with the woodwinds. So let's copy this into each thing and then pick the parts that we want. So this is all here. This is what the trumpets are going to be doing. And that's our little thing. I think someone mentioned earlier about the little rip at the end. That's going to be our little rip, but we don't want that in the trumpets. We don't want that, and we don't want that. We just want these. At the beginning, we kind of want them buried in the mix a little bit, and then at the end, we go do this nice big ending. Oh, cool. We're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to take my quantize, just going to add some quantize randomness to make them sound a little bit more realistic. Nice, cool. So in the low brass, we're going to have kind of the same thing going on, but these lows here, bring them down. Don't want them too low. That would be too heavy. And then we'll just make sure we've got the right articulation, which is going to be the staccatissimo. Cool, starting to come together. Yeah, I think we do want that. See. And then we're going to want kind of the same thing in our trombones. Maybe not that in the trombones. We'll see as we put everything together. Cool. And then we're just going to want that rip in the horns at the end again. I think we're going to want the horns playing. Probably not the highest note there. So those horns are going to be buried a bit in the mix. And then we got the... It's going to be our rip. Back to the staccatissimo. Thank you, Strider. I'm glad you like Nucleus. Yeah, it's really got a great cinematic sound, I think, Nucleus. Let's just get everything we can out of that maximum. Nice. Cool. That's sounding pretty good to me. And then same thing with the woodwinds. It's just all systems go. So nice big woodwind ensemble. We don't need to do everything separate. That's just kind of a bit overkill, I suppose. We will get that at the end though. Okay. Again, the woodwinds are just a texture here. They're adding this orchestral texture, but there's no need. You could go deep if you wanted to and sort of program each individual one, but okay, cool. We want everything. Nice. Cool. With a bit of work, that's going to sound pretty good, I think. And we're really going to want to bring that brass in at the end. think at the end. Yeah, let's try that. Big dive down to the bottom so we get these big chords. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. So this is what we have so far after about an hour, just over an hour of work maybe. I tell you what, let's just have some fun and add a little tiny bit of extra volume here now, just so we start to kind of feel what this might sound like when it was kind of a bit mastered or something. So. Cool, that's pretty good. I mean, it needs some cleaning up and whatever, but we can move on, I think, to the next stage. One more thing I do want to do, actually. So I'm being a bit lazy here by not sort of carrying on with our violas, just to have them drop out there, kind of not really, you know, we should just put them in. We're just being lazy. Well, I'm just being lazy. I shouldn't accuse you guys of being lazy. I'm being lazy. It's a pretty simple viola part, but it is adding an upper octave there, so... Nice. Now with orchestral music, percussion is going to add a lot here, I think, because it's a really driving piece. So where do we begin? I've sketched out the percussion. I'm just going to start by adding in what I know are going to be the important timpani bits. So here's one I prepared earlier, as I like to say. But getting some timpani in is going to be really important, I think. Okay, so let's go to our timpani. We got a nice one inside of nucleus here. And we'll add what we have here. Yeah, that's all going to be an octave lower. Cool. Now I'm just going to make this nucleus timpani a little bit sort of bassier. That's super easy to do. Just going to grab a really simple EQ. I just use something like Neutron. There it is. Nothing special here. Just going to... I'm going to filtrate some of the high end to make it sound a bit further back in the room. So as you can hear, if I filter it out... I like to add an exciter with a bit of tape just to give this some warmth and oomph. Hear that? It just adds this kind of excitement to it. Okay, bring everything down a little bit in velocity, and then we'll just see how this fits in. Nice, so we can start to just massage this. Listen to this in context. Nice. That's just adding a lot of that beef that we want now, right? Now, we're going to want to timpani roll that big D, sorry, for sure. So that's easy enough to do. Nice key switch here. Make sure for this D here, that one there, we just make that a roll. Easily done. And then we just have a nice swell on that roll. that's kind of come together, I think, all right. Yeah, we'll sort of work on that as we go now. But we're just roughing it in. So. You know what? I can already hear. I just want to keep that timpani going, just pulsing underneath at the end, but lowering the velocity a bit to get a rhythm going. So listen, it's gonna have to be up there. Nice. So that little distortion is going to add a lot of there's a lot of saturation and distortion in modern production, or just the sound of a real orchestra hitting tape. You know, you do get some of that saturation and excitement that just comes from everything pushing the needles a bit. Cool. That's added a bit more there. We will continue. So we got a snare to put in as well, but we'll worry about that a little bit further down the line. These here are cymbals that I know I want to add. So what I can do is copy them, make sure we're on the right. Yeah, cool. Okay. And then I'm just going to come to my atonal percussion. Now, this is a mixture of crash cymbals, piatti, in other words, two cymbals hit together, and sort of suspended cymbal, they're called, which is like a cymbal that you kind of can roll with or you can hit. It's got a slightly more elongated sound. Okay, so let's just have a little look where I wanted that first hit to be, because I realize I've just lost the place now. Classic me. Oh, okay, cool. So we are going to want in here, there. Now I have to find these different cymbals. Let's take a little look what we've got here. The piattis are going to be on the F0. Okay, that's easy enough done. So, up. Nice. So. That is a roll. It's going to be a little transition roll. So we go to our suspended cymbal. We have one here. We got the sustained roll on C4. So that's up here somewhere. There it is. And now we can control this roll with mod wheel. So that's going to enable us to do this shh kind of sound. Really simple. Just kind of grab it and ramp up in intensity. So it sounds like this. And listen how this just helps us move into the next section really smoothly with a kind of flourish. So yeah, we actually want it to end there. That's my bad. Cool. So more like this. Nice. Just helps get us into same thing here. Oh, this is another roll. Cool. And another roll there. You can sort of see where the rolls are going to be. Another roll here. Crash, bang, wallop. Sorry, guys. And then we have a big long roll on that final two chords. So that's kind of added some basic percussion there, and we're going to clean this up in a moment. This is what we have with percussion now. It's starting to come together. Then we'll add some maybe Cerberus percussion because there's a little bit of toms and things in here as well. But yeah, hope you've been enjoying this, guys. Nice. Now we need a snare. The snare is really providing a lot of rhythm for this. So what I'm going to do is take our violas, because I think that's going to be the model for our snare. We may need to do a bit of change here and there. I'll show you what I'll do. So take our violas. I'm going to copy this atonal percussion or duplicate the track so that we can just focus on one track for our snares. That should take a second and then it should all come good. And then we can get our snares in, which I think will be really useful, and just in terms of providing some rhythm and so on. Oh, I hope we haven't crashed Cubase here. Could you imagine if we've done that? Hopefully it'll come back in a second. Oh no. Imagine if we've crashed Cubase at the last. I think we have. Oh no. No, we're looking good. We're looking good. Phew. Could you imagine? I've been saving, so it wouldn't be the end of the world, but that would be a bummer. Okay. So. Where do we have our snares here? We'll probably use maybe these high snares. So we got the hits on D0. Do you want the high or the low snares? Let's have a little listen. So maybe we'll use those ones. I know, close. Cubase is usually pretty robust for me. But yeah, I did have a little moment then. So all these are going to need to be on the same. So obviously percussion is an atonal instrument. Okay, so let's see what we have going on here. Stow, I'm hoping to get that right. Stow is asking, would it be possible to have the CPR file? Yes, I might be able to make that available. What I'm going to try and do is make some of these project files available in our Discord, because that's going to be the easiest way of sharing them. So if you're not on our Discord, I've left a link in the description below. Join up. And yeah, we've done some streams over on our previous channels, and I've said I'll make some of those project files available. I'll just have to find a bit of time to get them all organized for you guys to look at. But yes, I'd be more than happy to share anything that we do on these streams, because it's all for you guys to just have a little dig into. So they're sounding pretty good. There's just a few places where I think we're going to want some rolls from the snares. Here. So we're going to add a nice big... oh, that's not what we want. We're going to add a nice big sustained roll here on this B3. That's the one. That's just going to help add even more, along with those trills, a lot of excitement. Yes. No, honestly, nothing I do in Cubase is perfect. We've had some serious technical hitches today. I'm just saving this again. I've got to save Paranoia on there. But yeah. And then we're really just going to ramp those we're kind of nearly there, right? I mean, there's, you know, we'll be wrapping up in about 10, 15 minutes anyway, or maybe 15, 20, but we've done most of what we want to do. There are a few sections though. So let me show you what I have going on here. There's some harp, but I want to play the harp in, I think. So what do I have going on here? The way I like to do harp is like this, right? It's not pretty, but it works. So here's our harp. Let's find it. Do we have it? Yes, here we go. Nice. First thing to do is I'm going to really give this some haul just to send it sort of quite far back. Nice. The way I like to do harp is this, right? You can play in, if you think about it, if you start a harp note on A and go up the white keys, you have a minor scale. And if you start a harp note on C and go up the white keys, you have a major scale. Nice and easy way of creating something and then easily being able to get it in. So this is a B flat chord here. So what I'm going to do is just run my fingers up the keys from C like this, and then we'll move it to the pitch that we want it. Nice, easy way of working if you have a keyboard. So this is what we have in the harp. Really nice, simple. Cool. Sounds okay. Let's take a look. If I just go. Yep. Cool. Nice. So. Perfect. And now with a little movement. There we go. And that sounds a bit weird here, but it's going to work quite nicely when we add it in. So let's make our harp a bit louder. As I say, sounds a bit weird, I know, but have a listen now. See how it just adds a little ripple in that moment. Without it, we just lose a bit of sort of movement with the harp. Sounds really nice, and then we can just extend that last note out. And then we have another harp thing here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to play this in really ugly, and then we can... Sounds ridiculous. Okay, Ollie is being a whiz kid here and adding all the stream stuff. Of course, the stream link would be missing probably. Sorry, guys. Yes, Ollie has put the Discord link in because we had some technical issues at the beginning. Cool. That sounds pretty good to me. Or maybe I'll stop. Nice. And then if we just keep that. It just adds another layer of it. Nice. And then we have one final harp flourish here on this big C and D chord. I can play that in again, and then we're kind of almost there, I think, guys. Look at that. Sounds very weird, I know, but that's a little bit of a cheat because a harpist can never do that, but it doesn't matter because the most important thing is this is just a layer, just decorative. Nice, and we'll just bring that harp with a little bit of, I'm not even going to use expression, I'm just going to use the channel automation here just to sort of raise this up, bring it back down like that. Just to really just get a little sense of it at the end. Nice. And then what we're missing finally, just to round this out, is this. Just so we have, yeah, okay. So we're just going to want these triplets here, bum, 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 bum. Nice. This is just going to have a really nice low bottom end here. That's just what we're missing at the end, just to give it this big rhythmic drive. Nice, cool. Okay, we're not really going to mix this, but we may just do one or two tricks, which I think are quite cool. I'm going to try one that usually works, or maybe one or two that works, and we'll see how they sound. In the brass, now this is a bit of a weird one. First, I'm going to do is add a tape emulation. This Saphira one is pretty good. I like it. It's got a good setting called Warm Blanket here. Just really warms the brass up. Cool. Let's make these woodwinds a bit brighter. We want to lose a little bit of thickness here. So. Nice. Ryson said, how to professor at university like you, no lie, dude, would be... Oh, I really just from memory. I see where you're coming from there. Yeah, well, I worked it out earlier on this piano. If you weren't with us earlier, I sketched it all out on piano. So this is not, truly from memory, because I've been listening to it some of the day and I had it all sketched out. But yeah, I sort of worked it out pretty much all by myself. And then there are a couple of analysis on YouTube that I use, which I can link you guys to, just to help me with one or two sections where I thought I'll get some extra advice and extra ideas from people. And, but yeah, it's all, other than that, it's all me pretty much, but this is, I mean, I've spent a bit of time working at the piano. Okay, let's just get a little bit of EQ here, just to brighten the strings up a tiny bit. And thin out some of this area here. Now I'm going to try something. This may or may not work. This is an interesting trick that I like to use sometimes. Stuff that's recorded to tape, or used to be recorded to tape, used to raise very slightly in pitch. Just a tiny, tiny bit, a few cents. But what it used to do is add a lot of excitement. Now this often works with John Williams stuff, and I like to do it. It may not work here, but we're going to give it a go and see what we think. I'm just going to raise the brass by like maybe 9 cents and see if it just adds a bit of excitement. I think it kind of does. It's weird, right? It's like when I lower this note, it's going to sound out of tune. It's kind of an odd thing. Might better push it a little bit more. Just add some kind of excitement. Do you see what I mean? It just adds a little bit of excitement there, I think. Sounds a bit flat now. And then with the raised thing, I don't have to do this, but I use it sometimes when I just want to just make the brass a tiny bit more exciting. And sometimes that slightly almost kind of slightly raised thing just gives a bit more fun to the track. Nice. There's one or two tiny things to add, I think, here. We could do more, but we probably won't have time to do everything, but there's definitely a couple of things. So let's go to Cerberus. There's some big toms at the end, and I think we can get them from Cerberus. So let's just see. They're here. They do this. Just make sure on the right notes on Cerberus. So we're going to want, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Cool, that's going to be good, I think. Okay. Let's take a look and hear what that sounds like. Yeah, okay. Let's embed this in because that's a bit too loud. Yeah, nice. So what I'm going to do is just make sure they're in the right sort of zone. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool to me, but we'll just do... Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be lazy and I'm just going to add OTT to these just to sort of give them something that I think they may be missing a little bit. Yeah, nice. See how that's adding. It's adding all that nice smacky kind of high-end stuff. Let me just bury them and mix them. Nice. And then we just want to take some of the low end out. These are not big chunky drums. They're sort of, yeah, more like that. We don't want to get too much gone, but cool. Now what I'm going to do for the rest of it is I'm going to take this timpani. I'm just literally going to copy it over to the Cerberus track, and this is going to add a bit of thwack to those timpani hits, but obviously we want them all on the same notes, which is going to be this B here. Oh. Thank you guys, I'm really glad you've enjoyed it. Okay, both them down there, both them down there. We don't want them too high in the mix, and we don't want them... What we're probably going to do is lower them until sort of the very end. Just going to add a little bit of high-end energy. See, without them we lose some of the transient, like, smack of things. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to distort these, right? Not like crazy, but I'm just going to add some of that energy. Just really get some excitement in there. Nice. Okay. We're probably going to use those drums from the beginning. I think we've got time. Yeah, we've got time. Put these in just to add some rhythm to those snares. So they're just going to... this kind of thing. So I think this is going to help. But much lower at the beginning. Yeah, nice. See how it's just adding... Cool. Shall we just do a tiny little bit of like mastering here? It's not going to be full on mastering, but you know, just add a little bit. Let's find something that we like. Just something like this. Okay, so what have we got? Let's have a little listen. You can really bring them down a little bit more. We don't want to hear them at the beginning as much. Nice. Can do some tiny little fixes at the end here. I'm going to use a tiny bit of filter on this trombone. Really love the sound of these trombones, but they can be a bit sort of too intense. We want them sort of we just want to lose some of that real high end just to bed them in a bit more. Yeah, let's go through one last time and see what we think. We've got a little bit of gap in the woodwind there. It doesn't matter. You never really hear them with everything else going on, but they probably would. The low woods would probably support the bass and stuff here. Let's have a final listen. Not too bad for like, I think we just did maybe about an hour and 45 minutes. I can't take any credit because the genius part's all in the writing, and that was definitely not me. That's the great Michael Giacchino. But it's hella fun to put this stuff on sample library sometimes, and it's really good practice. Sometimes I like to take a little piece like this and just practice my skills, maybe give myself an hour or two, see how far I get. And like I said, I did a little bit of cheating because I did obviously sketch a lot of this beforehand, but just goes to show, yeah, you can really get some good results out of this. And we haven't done crazy bit of mixing. You know, if I just show you very quickly, I can raise this up a bit. We've got not much going on here. You know, we've not really done any major EQ, a little bit of filtering here, a few little moments on the buses where we've added some bits and pieces, you know, just some EQ and whatever, but it's all pretty, you know, pretty low rent stuff really. I mean, you can hear it's just adding a bit of brightness and taking a bit of thickness out here and there. So not too much going on. We really haven't used that many plugins. But yeah, it's coming okay, and it's been really good fun, and I've really enjoyed you guys joining for the ride. So thank you very much, and apologies again for the little snafus at the beginning. Those will hopefully not be happening again in the future. Yeah, I think where we've gone from one platform to the other, we had to carry a few little bits and pieces over, but we're all fixed. We're all good. Yeah, we missed some interesting behind the scenes. Is this what Ollie dancing? I've heard he was jumping up and down in the office. That's good. That's a sign that, you know, you've managed to capture the spirit maybe of these Marvel films. And I hope if there's video footage, please do put that on More Audio Imperia, because that's what More Audio Imperia is for, mostly for watching staff members dance about when they're not realizing they're being filmed. So I'll see if there's any sort of video footage of Ollie dancing. I bet there is. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. This is really great fun. Next week, as Ollie said, we're going to be thunderbolting this fanfare. If you haven't seen Thunderbolts yet, then go watch it. It's really good, and you'll find out what we mean. If you have seen it, then you probably already know what we mean. We're going to take this, going to do something to it, and then we'll maybe extend it out a bit, do a kind of Thunderbolt style intro cue or something. We'll see. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, guys. There will be another one next week and every other week forward, whenever we can, which will be most weeks, I think. I'm going to head back to just chatting, and then we will do a wrap up. Cool. Well, we made it. After a bit of a horror start, we did manage to get everything working, which is cool. And as I said, I really appreciate you guys joining us for the whole thing. I've seen a lot of you on here. We've had a lot of great discussions, a lot of good questions. As I say, always feel free to ask anything, and I'll try and explain when I can. Or if you just want to chat to other people or to me or anybody else, you're always going to be more than welcome. Ollie's put the Discord link in the chat, but it's also in the description now. Do join us on there. And yes, I can almost certainly try and make this and other projects available. Maybe not every project, but I'm sure we can make most of them available. And you can have a look at how we put this together and maybe do it yourself if you want to. You don't need all these sample libraries. You could use, we could have just done this on Araya or just on Dolce. Almost all of this could be done on some of the light libraries too. There would be some things you want the pro libraries for, but you can have a lot of fun putting these together on some of the light libraries as well. And we've done one recently, a video where we did the Obi-Wan soundtrack using almost nothing but light libraries. We did some solo on there as well, but that was great fun too. That was a previous stream. So yeah, thank you for joining me, guys. This has been really good fun. Apologies again for the technical problems at the beginning, but we managed to make it work and we ended on a high, which is good. Thank you, Walker. On the good job. Yeah, and good job the rest of you guys. You've made it really, really fun. Great active chat, which we always love to see. And we'll be looking forward to doing this all again, minus the technical hitches next week, where we're going to thunderbolt this theme up, which is going to be really cool. So I'm going to head off, have a drink, maybe have some dinner, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I hope you have a great day. And if you're writing music and you're in our Discord server, let us know, share it. We love to hear what you're up to. And if you want to have a bash at this theme, we'd love to hear that too. So yeah, take care, guys, and I shall